the County Operations Committee meeting for June 23rd, 2026. The first action item is approval of minutes for June 3rd of 2026. Oh, sorry. Thank you. That's why you have counsel here. Keep me in line. Member Elsasser is requesting to join by phone. Need a motion on the floor. Member Duncan and second by Member Renault. Are we going to do a voice vote, or Megan, you want to do it on the iPad?
Chairman Ricker, I'll have to do a voice vote today for everything.
Okay. Okay, the vote should be open. Jennifer, is the voice vote?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Welcome, Member Elsasser.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will move to approval of minutes for June 3rd, 2026. I need a motion. Member Williams and Member Coates. Any revisions, changes? I did note one thing. There was we did a combined approval last month of the executive minutes and regular minutes, and it doesn't show that way when you read the minutes. So maybe if you could modify that to show both of them were approved in the same motion. Other than that, I will ask for a vote.
I vote aye.
We had an aye from Member Elsasser
Aye.
and an aye from Member Allison. All right, that passes. Thank you. We have one informational item today. It's the paid parental leave summary. As you remember, late last year, we approved a parental leave policy. And so Ms. Loftus will give us some comments, and it's in your packet, the information.
Good afternoon. Yes, thank you. We just wanted to kind of bring a summary for the paid parental leave. If you recall, in October is when you approved paid parental leave for up to 6 weeks or 240 hours for either the birthing or the non-birthing parent as an employee for Peoria County. So this is just very high level. The number of departments that were impacted were 5. We've had a total of 9 employees participate in this type of paid parental leave. The total hours at the time of this report were just over the 1,400 hours, and then the cost is just under $60,000.
Okay, any questions from the committee on this? I think we were all pretty positive when we added this to the HR policies. We knew there'd be some costs, but that was, I think, a good outcome for us. Anyone have any comments on how often you'd like to see this type of information? Maybe every 6 months until we get one more in a 6-month run and then decide if there's any changes? Okay, we'll do that. All right, thanks, Ms. Loftus. Now we will move to...
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, sure.
Can you tell us what the feedback has been as to, because we had talked about the appropriate length of time. Have you received feedback on how the perception is on that
I would
policy?
definitely say all the, individuals that have applied for it, are definitely very appreciative of that. I would say in terms of departments, probably the 24-hour facilities are the ones from a department standpoint that would have them, most difficulty maybe covering, shifts just because of the requirements. But no, we really haven't had any, complaints from employees as far as asking for more time. I would say, on average, I mean, everyone's using around 230 to 240 hours.
Great, thanks for the question. Any other questions from the committee on this topic? All right, we'll move to resolutions. We have one resolution. It's a resolution to adoption of the Enterprise Artificial Intelligence Usage Policy and Governance Framework. A lot of words, Mark, but I need a motion on the floor for this policy. Member Coates and Member Bryant. So I'm going to turn it over to CIO, Mr. Liddell, and let him spell it out for us.
Thank you, Mr. Ricker. So before you this afternoon is a resolution for the adoption of a formal enterprise artificial intelligence usage policy and governance framework. This policy was written not to halt innovation, nor does it force any accelerated adoption of AI. The goal was to establish a rigorous infrastructure, wrapper, security around our county's digital assets and to ensure responsible vetted AI adoption, protect our data sovereignty, and keep us strictly compliant with Illinois state law. As we discussed a couple weeks ago, I believe it was 2 weeks ago now, our network analytics revealed that we have within our architecture staff members who are using current AI tools, and these are consumer grade tools for such things as convenience of drafting text or summarizing complex documents. Doing so over the open internet creates systematic security gaps in unmanaged data privacy rights. So why is this a threat? By default, public consumer models operate under terms that allow vendors to extract whatever you put into them and to train their public algorithms. If an employee types sensitive county records into these portals, those files are exposed to external cloud environments. AI systems operate by processing and learning from massive data sets. Without a precise internal rules and technical mapping showing exactly where our restricted files are stored, an enterprise AI tool could accidentally scan, index, and reveal high sensitive records to unauthorized users. To get ahead of this, IT Services is planning a future comprehensive data governance project to index, classify, and lock down digital files across all departments, preventing confidential data from ever being scanned or utilized. To manage this right now, the policy in front of you introduces a tiered governance model that categorizes tools into basically 3 levels based on risk rather than individual product names. There's Tier 1, which is public and prohibited. These are unmanaged consumer platforms where data is extracted for public training. Tier 2, which is an enterprise security and control. These are commercial platforms protected by strict corporate data privacy agreements. And finally, Tier 3, which are isolated secure environments. These are highly sandbox spaces reserved strictly for specialized department tasks. Staff requesting any AI access will be required to submit a formal operational justification to IT Services for review by myself and the AI Governance Board. Personal subscriptions for county business are strictly prohibited. To enforce this, we're looking in developing advanced cutting-edge software protections. This includes smart behavior monitoring tools. Think of this like an automated security guard on county computers. Standard antivirus software only blocks known malware. This system actually monitors behavior. If a user attempts to copy, paste, restrict municipal text like social security numbers, medical notes, or confidential records into an unapproved browser or unauthorized AI portal, the system can catch it, block the action, and reject the request before a data leak occurs. Furthermore, IT services will systematically block unvetted consumer-facing platforms on our network while allowing standard citizen and guest web browsing. We are also implementing a permanent network boundary defense against unvetted external shadow bots or automated note takers to reverse judicial confidentiality and avoid Illinois biometric privacy acts. Only native features built into the county's Microsoft Teams tenant are authorized, utilizing standard consent to record. Operationally, if we look at the operational and fiscal impact of this, operationally, continued access to secure AI tiers is an earned privilege contingent upon annual training refresh. IT Services is actively reviewing required online video-based training options and will collaborate with strategic communications staff to streamline this across all units. If we deploy a new or modified enterprise AI platform, affected personnel must complete an updated security evaluation within 30 days. We have also synced with this HR offboarding so that an employee's elevated AI clearance is immediately revoked with enterprise directly upon role transition or separation. We have established a mandatory 24 hours disclosure window for accidental, what's called data spills. If an employee honestly and proactively reports an accidental data spill into an unapproved platform within 24 hours, the policy provides a safe harbor clause. However, attempting to conceal or spill intentional bypass security logs will be treated as an immediate grounds for maximum disciplinary action. Fiscally, while we can leverage our baseline security umbrella by Cisco, full implementing and enforcing this policy will require an upgrade in the purchase of specific security add-on modules to our current licensing. IT Services is currently evaluating the Cisco upgrade options and final software costs. We will return to the committee at a later date to formally approve in a 2026 most likely budget modification from the IT fund balance to fund this. So, in summary, I recommend moving forward with this approval. It applies to all the internal, external affiliated personnel utilizing Peoria County infrastructure, ensuring our digital perimeter and data sovereignty remains secure. Finally, I want to thank a couple of folks who helped out in this from the state's attorney's office, Jenny and Essence, who we worked a lot on Friday, getting this completed, lots of edits, trying to pull out the IT side of this and put the legal side on. And also Gretchen, who volunteered to help out with some of this. And Gretchen had put together the best practices guide we added. She had been gathering information for several months and stepped up and put that together as part of this. So I'm open to questions.
Okay, it's a good team effort. So questions from the committee. Member Blair.
I had just one comment. In the policy, it says an annual reporting to the board. I'm just wondering, as we're starting this, if we should have more frequent reporting, at least 6 months. I don't know if 3 months is too short, but.
Well, we do a 6 month in the first window, 2 6s, and then we'll decide if we want to go to 12 after that. Good request. Other questions from the committee? Member Phelan.
Mark, am I right to understand that this, if approved, puts into place the board that you spoke about, or the committee that does approvals and reviews of job class or cases?
Yeah, part of this is to put a governance structure into place to manage that.
And so if you make a denial, is there an appeal process to that that's part of this?
I think that's part of the reason we put in the governance side of it, is so that wasn't up to me solely, but a group from across the county, from both appointed and from the elected side.
But that group has not been established at this point.
It has not yet. No.
So I guess my question is, if we approve this, what gives us any say in the committee structure? And then I know last time when we spoke too, it was discussed that this is changing so rapidly that there might need to be a revision. So I guess I would question too, if we approve this structure today and you revise it multiple times, it's not really what we approved today. So how do you plan to satisfy that?
Well, I believe that any changes to this policy would have to come back to this committee. So no, we would. I mean, it's no different. We had a justice committee, governance committee when we implemented the criminal justice system. that group still exists today, 13 years later. They brought issues to the board and they needed board approval or committee approval for that, but the day-to-day things they managed within that governance group, and that was made up of a mixture of elected and appointed. So no different than any other governance committee.
As far as cost to it, I believe it said there's maybe no cost. How is that if you're intending to buy licenses for users that ask?
There will be some cost to that side of it. We have to gather more information. We've been going through the data from May, looking at really where the usage is, the heaviest usage is. And we'll have to look at what the demand for that is and some of those costs. And a lot of it depends upon exactly what language model we're looking at. You know, we know the cost of a couple of them. Some of them at this point, we don't know what those enterprise costs are yet.
I just want to say to you that I know last committee I was pretty vocal and like, hey, we should have had this done. But it seems like there's still a lot of gaps in this from my perspective. So I don't intend to support this today just because I think it needs a lot more work before it's something that we should publish. I also have a serious concern, like I vocalized last time, that we're going to continue. I don't know where you draw the line on buying licenses versus telling someone no. And I just see this growing into a extraordinary cost to the county to either buy licenses. So I won't be supporting this today.
Okay. Other questions from Member Elsasser?
Neither will I be supporting it because I don't feel comfortable voting on something when I don't know how much it's going to cost yet. And so I'd rather have the whole package together and then vote on it, if that'd be possible.
It's possible. I guess this is the first phase of a multiple phase request. So phase one is what you're seeing here is putting a basic policy in on training and the available license and tools that we want to let in. There's more, the next level behind the scenes is to put the software package in to monitor, control, access. There will be a cost for that. And there may be a small cost for this for training. There will be training modules that we'll put out for employees. But it's a good first step to get employees, and I know Member Blair, I think, brought that up last meeting, of getting employees on board, understanding the impact of what AI and how you misuse it, how that can impact the county and security. So this is an area I don't think we've navigated before, obviously, but I think we'll have to come back on a regular basis and review the policy. Mark said he'll come back with a proposal for a software, which will be a cost, and we'll have to approve that. So there's multiple steps, but this is step one to get us started. Member Ellison.
So I also had similar questions, seeing as how some of this sounded vague at this point, but you may have answered that by saying this is phase one. So with this being phase one, is there an assumption that before phase two, we're back here talking about this again before anything is implemented, or how is that intended to work? I'm thinking specifically to the governance board. How is that set up, and when is that up and running before we move forward? What would the next step be if we were to move forward today?
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Mark, you want to talk about?
I think there's a couple ways we can do it. When we met 2 weeks ago, the direction I got was we needed to get a policy in place to restrict the uncontrolled pieces using the commercial, the non-commercial side to protect their data. The dollars and cents piece takes time. I mean, I just can't call somebody and get a quote on that directly and get it implemented. We've had multiple meetings since that point. I think that's a step one. Step two, which is any software to support this and potential dollars for purchasing AI-based software. I don't have that in my 2026 budget. If we want to set a number around that and say, all right, we're going to give you an X amount of dollars to do this, and we'll see how this goes to the end of the year, we can do that. But that'll have to come back next month.
Okay. I guess there's some comments around the governance board. And is that something we as a committee want to manage who's on that board? Or do we let CIO do that? I guess I throw it out. Remember, Phelan, you had brought it up.
I believe last time he was open to the idea of allowing others on there. So I mean, I would think we need that. But back to like the cost component, not to jump topics here, but I'm curious if the administrator, maybe someone from HR would speak on this. If we deny a request, and maybe it's a non-exempt or maybe somebody in a bargaining unit that we've denied a request to, do they have an ability to file a grievance or make a complaint that one of their coworkers has access to AI, but we haven't allowed them that opportunity?
From a collective bargaining standpoint, I'll maybe ask Angela to speak to that. She knows and works with all of our bargaining agreements every day and knows them much better than I do. In concept, I would say, a team member that's represented by a bargaining unit can grieve just about anything. But that doesn't mean that it goes very far in the grievance process. I would also think that we would work to be cognizant and aware of trying to avoid that type of situation. But we're obviously not perfect, so.
Yeah, I would agree. Anything can obviously be grieved, but again, it's going to be what's actually in the collective bargaining agreement, and this is going to be like a personnel policy. So this information currently will just be a personnel policy that applies county-wide, and it's not specifically in any one collective bargaining agreement. And most likely our preference would be to keep it as a personnel policy and not go into each collective bargaining agreement where they could tweak here and there. So it would be just like our FMLA policies or other things that are just county-wide. So then you're not really able to grieve it on a collective bargaining stance. But I mean, like with anything, you could still file a complaint or, feel that you were unfairly treated if a policy was applied differently.
Okay, good discussion. Make sure we cover things. Remember, Renault.
Thank you. I feel for the sake of transparency that at some point we need to disclose, especially on forward-facing documents to the public, that this document or draft was AI generated. And I don't know at what point it becomes unique. Like if you take something from AI and you edit it, does it then not become? Is it not AI generated? But I feel that should be defined in the policy and that we should disclose that information to the public if something is generated by AI.
Okay, good question. I think it's a little deeper than we want to.
If you want to propose an amendment to add that into the policy that employees would need to disclose that something was used or generated using AI, that would just be a motion to amend, and then we'd need a second and vote on that, and then vote on the policy as amended.
I don't feel like it can be flushed out that quickly because, again, I think we need to define what generated by AI means before we can put a policy into place.
Okay. Right, so no amendment at this point. I understand the input. Our options are either to table this or to approve it knowing there's a future policy coming along behind this in probably the next 60 days or so. Member Valera.
I know that I think we're getting into best practices of making an attribution that this was generated or how generative AI was used for this document. Maybe this is something that the governing board can come up with some language that we can approve.
Okay. It becomes very complex as Member Renault pulls out. You can have pieces of it that are AI generated that are a subset. That whole document then is impacted by it. I think that's fair, right, Mark? If it's any part of a document is AI generated, all of it is.
I think the challenge comes is when you're using any Microsoft product today, and you do a spell check, you do a thesaurus check, any of that, there's AI running all that. So even, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to define that. I mean, and we're seeing that in the data we're gathering is the what's running in the back end on all the Microsoft products is AI all day long. And anytime you're using that to, even to ask it to, how do I improve this, or, you know, from, like I said, the thesaurus side, that's all running AI in the background today.
Yeah, every time you get that little blue squiggle with a recommendation, right? And I wouldn't consider that needing an attribution, right?
And I think that's the challenge on this. I know from my peers across the state, it's a huge challenge on where do you define that. You know, I know several very large counties north of here that have not come to agreement on a policy yet because of wording. Similar, I mean, we went out and searched. We found a couple counties only that have passed AI policy in the state. That's all I've been able to find so far. A lot of them put guardrails kind of around it, recommendation, but you know, the latest, I said it on a webinar the other day on AI adoption, and it looks like out of most of the data that gathered, 92% of the companies across the country have shadow AI running in the background. So it's a real issue, and it continues to be a challenge on your end.
Well, again, this is a first step. It's obviously not the final step. We can always, when we will come back and do amendments or additions, I guess the question would be, is there anything here that prohibits or an employee from doing their productive work of the day? Have we blocked people from doing what we expect them to do? You know, we don't want to block anyone's progress or work performance. I don't think there's anything that prohibits that. It does give us some guidelines to follow, training, some communication. It's the first step of helping employees understand what AI is and how it impacts them and the risk. So I see it. I see all the inputs, but I guess we'll let the vote decide if we want to move forward with this. Member Blair.
Do we know of any that this is going to block anyone from a disability perspective, that they were using some kind of AI assistive tool?
No, we have a listing of all the tools that run in the background. We've started to vet those tools. I mean, there are some tools that, yes, have to be used as part of those packages. And there's other tools that are running just to create ads for you based on information that you're interacting with. And I will tell you, as of yesterday morning, there's 98 tools classified as AI running in the background. Of course, the Microsoft piece is the largest, but some of those have been used 2 or 3 times. So no, we're not going to restrict anybody's ability to do their work, because there's a lot of AI being built into our web searches, the ability for people to come in and do web searches in the circuit clerk's office and file names. There's AI running in the background of those on our website. That, no, we do not restrict that.
Okay. Member Ellison?
Maybe this question is more for Scott. I don't know that I got an actual answer without having the subscription information and the governance board set up. What is this doing? This is phase 1, but at what point is it before us again before things are moved forward?
So at a high level, this creates the mechanism, creates the impetus to then seat a governance body. Gives us the ability to turn off some of those more commercial-based products and unapproved products that do have a threat to our data. I think where we would want to come back is once we've got pricing information for what we're going to need, we'll bring that back at the earliest available committee date, whether that be next month or the following month. As soon as we've got that pricing, we'll bring that back. Listening to the debate here today, you know, I think we'll also be working on the first set of amendments to the text itself that will give better clarity on the governance body or group. Mr. Phelan mentioned appeals process. Maybe we would try and define an appeals process. Mr. Renault's comment about transparency and disclosures. So I think we already have a working list of things that we can bring forward as amendments at a future meeting. Should this get out of committee today? If the chair is reading tea leaves and says it's not going to get out of committee, then we'd much rather just defer it, make those adjustments, and bring that back at our earliest opportunity.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think under the assumption that it will stop some of maybe the data leaking that could be going on right now. In the meantime, I will support it with the understanding that we have more coming before us.
Okay. No, thank you for that input. Member Phelan.
I have one more question with that being said. So this policy, when would it go in, if approved, when would it go into effect?
I think after the full board meeting here in July.
So
immediately after that meeting is approved.
Be effective upon adoption.
If I'm reading this right, I think you said it last time at committee, Mark, was that there are employees that are currently using personal accounts, which is a closed loop account. So this policy, if adopted, bans those. It bans employees from using their personal accounts. So if you don't have a governance committee set up to approve, you have taken data from a closed loop system and put it into an open system that AI can learn from. Is that accurate?
Yes, there are people using personal accounts.
But what I'm saying is, in this policy, you're telling them they can't.
Right.
But you also have given them no alternative to use a closed account that's provided by the county.
Yes.
So you have essentially taken a step backwards with anybody that is using a personal account today.
No, because that closed account does not replicate that data to the large language model. That's the whole idea. We don't want it to update.
I think
I understand that, but when you ban the use of them and you haven't approved a way for them to get on a closed loop account that's provided by the county, you have a window of time where somebody that was previously protecting data a little bit better than what they would be if this policy was approved.
Yeah, I take it that it's a timing issue where we approve this, we ban all use of open systems, commercial behind the scenes with the county data. We don't have a governance board in the process behind the scenes to approve getting a closed system approved. The process in place. I think that's, to get it approved.
That's a component of what I'm saying, but the other piece of that is if someone pays for an account currently, they call that a closed loop system. Their system is not training, their information they put into it is not training the model. It is their own subscription. Is that
We don't allow anybody to run anything off their own subscription within our environment. We block software every day.
Is that blocked currently?
Is it blocked currently? No. But we block outside software. From a just standard security side of things, we block people from specific hardware, by software. I mean, that happens on a daily basis here from the security side of things, and this would be no different. We would create a blacklist, block that, and put a whitelist in place of the things that were allowed.
Yeah.
Those would want to be closed managed.
So I think, Member Phelan, and please correct me if I'm misinterpreting what your question is, but I think the example is if somebody is using out of and paying for a subscription out of their own pocket versus county funds, say a subscription to Claude, and upon passage, we would block if they're doing it on a county issued device, we block the use of Claude. Now, if they have their own personal smartphone, not a whole lot we can do to block that if they're using our public Wi-Fi as an example. But when we do then block that use of Claude, at the same time we haven't yet set up the governance structure. We haven't set up a means and a methods for them to use an approved substitute for Claude, whether that be Copilot or Gemini, um, uh, through a county-approved device and in the county's network. So, I think if I'm articulating by my example, your question correctly, Mr. Phelan, I think it's a cart before the horse issue. The policy is what gives us the ability to create the governance structure and the oversight, which we kind of can't do until the policy is enacted and adopted. We also want to be very cognizant of the security threats and the data threat that we do experience. So is there going to be an overlap? Possibly. Can we look at the timing of turning off that private cloud subscription if they even have access to our data in the first place in relationship to how the governance structure is created? Yes, we can do that, but absolutely a timing issue. Hopefully I articulated your question correctly with that example.
And I think there's maybe one other assumption here I'd ask Mark to opine on. I think Mr. Phelan, Member Phelan, commented if someone purchased their own subscription, then it'd be secure. I guess I want you to address that, because a personal subscription and when the county would buy probably have different
I
levels
don't
of
need Mark to address that. There's
Oh.
an open loop system and a closed loop. It's closed when someone buys a subscription. I don't need him to explain that to
Okay.
me, Steve.
Okay. No, thanks. Any other questions? I'm trying to read if we want to table this thing. I mean, we can postpone it. We got to make a motion to table it, is that right? Both.
It can be a motion to postpone to a date certain, or if you table it, it goes into no man's land and has to be proactively brought back on the table. And you would need obviously the votes to do that. So you can postpone to a date certain or table.
You want to postpone? Your mic on? I can't hear your mic.
I would make a motion to postpone.
Okay. Anyone as a second?
Could you clarify postpone to when?
Oh, the next meeting. Apologize.
Until the next meeting, so it'll be the July committee meeting. Okay. We have a second to postpone this to July to get further clarification. Member Ellison. So this would be postponing it to address some of the concerns that have come up. I won't repeat them all, but I think they're on record. So, Megan, can we take a vote on this amendment or postpone? Okay, we need a voice vote. I think I'm going to ask to go around the room just so we clearly know what we have for accounts. You're voting aye for delaying it or postponing it for a month. Member Williams, member no? Aye, okay.
Aye.
Allison's an aye.
Nay.
Blair's a nay. Bryant's a nay. Duncan's an aye. Coates is an aye. Phelan's an aye. I'll be an aye. So we had 2 nays and the rest are ayes. So we have postponed this for 1 month. Mark, we'll let you go back and work through the details, and we'll see that next month. Okay, good discussion. A lot of details behind this. This is not an easy topic. Member Renault.
I just want to ask one last question. Does it take action of this committee or the board to form the governance committee? Can that be formed without prior to?
I think the policy should address that, who selects the board, how it's formed, how members come on and off the governance board. Right now, it just, my recollection, the policy has the CIO or the governance board making decisions, but there was no formation of the governance board in the policy that I recall. So I would recommend adding that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a preference?
To what?
Did you ask if the committee should be the one forming the board?
Or approving
No,
the
I just
board?
didn't know if it took action upon us to form the board. I just didn't want us to, in a month, still not have a board formed and still have the cart before the horse.
No, we won't have a board form because we don't have policy approved to do that.
So it does take action from the committee.
I think so.
Right now, there's no policy to say how it's formed, so it's a little bit of a circular problem. So you can't, it doesn't exist until the policy or something that you all do forms the board.
Good question. I guess, remember, Renaud, are you looking for this committee to approve the membership of the board, or just the structure around how it's formed? And
my question was just merely, can the governance board be formed prior to whatever policy it is that we're deciding on? But I guess if the formation is part of the policy, then no.
okay, yeah, I clarified that. Member Elsasser.
Wouldn't it be possible for us to vote on the policy in one resolution, and then the next resolution would be the governance board that has been selected? I mean,
Yeah, it would be in a future vote. We've already tabled this one.
Yeah.
Or postponed it.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions from? Okay. We will move to miscellaneous. And public comment. Anyone from public have a comment? Otherwise, we'll adjourn. Thank you.